I always knew my sister envied me, but I never imagined she'd actually sabotage my future. I'm Marco, 23, and for as long as I can remember, my sister Daniela, 2 years older, has had it out for me. She wasn't violent, not loud, not obvious, but you could always feel it. That low, burning resentment she carried like a hidden dagger. Growing up, she was the golden child. Straight A's, beauty pageants, and piano recitals. Our parents worshipped the ground she walked on. I was just there. The quiet, awkward kid who somehow always fell short. But the dynamic shifted when I hit college. See, while Daniela burned herself out chasing shallow trophies, I went all in on academics, specifically environmental engineering. I lived in the library. I sacrificed my weekends. And eventually, it paid off. I got shortlisted for the Eden International Fellowship, a full-ride scholarship to study in Switzerland, a dream I had been working towards since my second year. Only 10 students worldwide are selected each year, and I was one of them. The interview was scheduled in Geneva, 3 days before Christmas. A direct flight. Fully paid. Once in a lifetime. I remember when the acceptance email came in. I stood in the kitchen, shaking, barely able to believe it. My mom smiled politely, gave me a lukewarm, "That's nice, dear." My dad mumbled something about missing the holidays if I got in. But Daniela? She didn't say a word. She just looked me up and down, then went back to scrolling on her phone. I knew that look. The closer the trip got, the weirder things became. Daniela started accidentally locking my bedroom door when I wasn't home. Mom started making passive-aggressive comments about how I'd better not forget where I come from if I became some big-shot European scientist. It was suffocating, but I brushed it off. I had bigger things to focus on. Or so I thought. 3 days before my flight, I went and grabbed my passport from my desk drawer, and it was gone. At first, I thought I misplaced it. I tore my room apart. Mattress flipped. Closet emptied. I even checked the trash. Nothing. I tore through the house like a maniac, asking everyone if they'd seen it. Mom just sighed and told me to stop being so dramatic. My dad didn't even look up from his crossword puzzle. But Daniela, oh, Daniela. She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, smirking. "Some opportunities aren't meant for everyone," she whispered, loud enough that only I could hear it. It felt like my blood turned to ice. I saw red. I knew she had it. But how do you prove that without looking paranoid? My parents already treated me like I was overreacting. Daniela? She was their perfect little angel. So I tried again. I begged. I pleaded. I even offered to buy her something expensive if she just gave it back. She just walked away, laughing under her breath. That night, I sat on my bed staring at my empty backpack. My flight was at 6 a.m. 2 days later. Without a passport, I was screwed. Or so she thought. Because what my family didn't know is that I had 2 passports. Yeah, 2 years ago, I applied for dual citizenship through my grandmother's country, Italy. It was a long process, tons of paperwork, background checks, even an in-person interview at the consulate. But I got approved. And when I received my Italian passport, I locked it in a safe deposit box at my bank, just in case. Call it overkill. Call it paranoia. But it was the smartest thing I ever did. So, while my family sat in the living room celebrating my downfall with smug smiles and passive-aggressive comments, I slipped out. I drove to the bank, retrieved my Italian passport, and booked a different flight, first thing the next morning, from a different airport an hour away. I didn't even pack properly. I just grabbed my essentials, threw them in my carry-on, and left without saying a word. The last thing I did before boarding? I posted a single Instagram story, just a boomerang of my boarding pass and coffee cup, no location tagged. The caption? Catch me if you can. What do you think Daniela's reaction will be when she sees me on the news accepting that award? It's funny how silence can make your heart race louder than any alarm clock. As I sat at gate 22, waiting for boarding to start, I couldn't stop checking my phone. Refresh. 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 I knew it was petty, but I needed to see if Daniela saw my Instagram story. I needed her to know she failed. 5 minutes passed. Nothing. 10 minutes. Still nothing. Then it hit me. She probably blocked me. Classic Daniela. Play dirty and block all evidence. I actually chuckled to myself. It didn't matter. What mattered was the fact that I was getting on that plane, and she had no idea. Or so I thought. The first red flag came just after I landed in Geneva. As I was walking to baggage claim, my phone started blowing up. Not from Daniela, but from my mom. Dozens of missed calls. Voicemails. Angry text messages. "Where the hell are you? How dare you sneak out like that? You better come back home right now and apologize to your sister." You're tearing this family apart with your selfishness. I didn't reply. I just turned off my phone. If they wanted answers, they could watch the news in 3 days. I spent the next day shaking off the jet lag and preparing for the interview. The other 9 candidates were intimidating as hell: valedictorians, Ivy Leaguers, kids who spoke 3 or 4 languages fluently. I felt like an imposter in every sense of the word. But when it came time for the panel interview, something inside me flipped. I told them my story, not the part about Daniela, but about how I grew up in a house where I was constantly underestimated, how no one believed in me, how I had to fight for every scrap of success I ever had. I spoke from a place I didn't even know I had inside me. And for the first time in years, I felt free. The next day, all 10 of us were invited to the awards gala, sworn to secrecy until the official announcement. It was a black tie event, held at this glass-walled auditorium overlooking Lake Geneva. Politicians, scientists, media outlets from all over Europe. And then they called my name. The applause blurred into white noise. I could barely feel my legs as I walked on stage to accept the award. Cameras flashing. Reporters shouting questions. I felt like I was floating. After the ceremony, I was escorted backstage for interviews. That's when it happened. One of the reporters leaned in and said, "Marco, is it true you nearly missed this opportunity due to a stolen passport?" I froze. I hadn't told anyone. I never mentioned it during the interview or to the organizers. Hell, I hadn't even posted about it online. Where did you hear that?" I asked, trying to play it cool. The reporter smiled. "An anonymous source from your hometown tipped us off this morning. Any comments on that?" My jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth might crack. Daniela. It had to be her. She was trying to ruin this for me even now. I leaned into the microphone and gave the most polite smile I could muster. Let's just say I came prepared. And just like that, the interview ended. I spent the rest of the night networking, shaking hands, and pretending my life wasn't one spark away from burning down completely. Because deep down, I knew Daniela wasn't done. And sure enough, she wasn't. The next morning, as I sat in the hotel lounge scrolling through the news, I noticed a headline on a local gossip blog back home. Runaway scholar. Hometown family claims award winner abandoned them after family tragedy. I clicked the link, heart pounding. It was a full-blown hit piece. Anonymous quotes, obviously my parents and Daniela claiming I had betrayed my family, disrespected our traditions, and ran away when I was needed most. The kicker? They claimed Daniela was sick. Like, seriously ill and needing support level of sick. I couldn't believe what I was reading. They had turned this entire thing into a sympathy circus, painting me as the ungrateful son who ran off to Europe while my poor, dying sister was left behind. I wanted to puke. But what made me snap was the closing line. "We just hope he remembers that family comes before fame." I gripped the phone so tight I thought I might crush it. My heart was pounding like a war drum in my ears. They weren't just trying to ruin my career now, they were trying to destroy my name. I had 2 choices. Ignore it and move on with my new life. Fly home and confront them face to face. And as much as I wanted to wash my hands of them forever, I knew I couldn't let them have the last word. I booked a ticket home that night. And I had a plan. I landed back home 2 days later. No announcement. No posts. No contact. The moment I stepped out of the airport, my phone blew up again. This time, it wasn't just my parents. It was my boss. Apparently, my family had sent emails to the university and my employer, accusing me of lying on my application, claiming I forged my documents, saying I wasn't eligible. They didn't stop at ruining my name locally. They tried to ruin my future. I rushed to my boss's office the second I got back. Thankfully, he didn't buy a word of it. He showed me the emails, shook his head, and said, "Looks like someone's trying real hard to tear you down, Marco. But you're good. Don't let them get in your head." I almost broke down right there. But I didn't have time to fall apart. I had one stop left, my parents' house. I parked down the block and walked up the driveway. I could hear voices inside, laughter. My heart was thumping. I rang the doorbell. Daniela answered, smirking like she'd already won. "Well, back so soon? What happened? Did they find out you're a fraud after all?" I stepped inside without saying a word. My parents were in the living room, pretending to look surprised. The fake concern on my mom's face made me want to scream. I pulled out my phone, hit record, and put it on the coffee table. "Let's clear this up. Right here. Right now." Daniela rolled her eyes. "There's nothing to clear up. You abandoned your family. And now you're here trying to play the victim." I leaned in, keeping my voice steady. "You stole my passport. You tried to sabotage my future. You spread lies about me to my boss, to the university, to the press. My dad stood up, trying to cut me off, but I didn't stop. I've got proof. Emails, messages, video, all of it. And if you keep pushing this, I will go public. Daniela's face went pale. My mom started crying. Marco, please, don't do this. It'll destroy us. I grabbed my phone and stood up. You already destroyed us. And just like that, I walked out. But I wasn't finished yet. I had one more move to make. I didn't go back to my apartment that night. I checked into a cheap hotel with nothing but my backpack and my phone. I spent hours staring at that recorded conversation. Part of me wanted to send it straight to the news stations that covered the scholarship ceremony. Another part of me just wanted to forget everything and move on. But the damage was already done. They had smeared my name. They had crossed the line. I had to finish this. I uploaded the audio to a private file, added screenshots of the threatening emails they sent to my university and boss, and included pictures of the anonymous posts from the gossip site. Then I sent the entire folder to 3 people. My boss, the scholarship committee, a local journalist I knew through a friend. I didn't add any captions. No explanations. I let the evidence speak for itself. I didn't have to wait long. By the next morning, the journalist had already replied. Can we run your story? You deserve to be heard. I agreed. On one condition, keep my family's names anonymous. This wasn't about public shaming. It was about clearing my name. By the end of the day, the headline was live. Local scholarship winner speaks out. I was sabotaged by my own family. No names. No photos. But the entire story was there. It blew up fast. Hundreds of shares. Dozens of supportive comments. Even my old high school teachers reached out to tell me how proud they were. The best part? The scholarship committee released an official statement standing by me 100%. They even mentioned I'd been selected as one of their ambassadors for next year's program. I should have felt victorious. But deep down, I knew the storm wasn't over. Because not even 24 hours later, Daniela showed up at my job. She marched right into the parking lot, screaming loud enough to turn every head in the building. How could you do this to us? You lied about everything. You're a disgrace to this family. Security showed up in less than a minute. But not before she shouted one last thing that chilled me to the bone. You think this is over? It's not. You're dead to us now. She didn't know it yet, but that was the first true thing she'd said in years. And I was perfectly fine with that. After the parking lot meltdown, I knew I had to go completely no contact. I changed my number the same night, blocked my parents, Daniela, and every extended family member who had so much as liked one of her passive-aggressive posts online. I wasn't taking any more chances. But I knew them. They weren't going to give up that easily. By the next morning, I started getting emails from burner accounts. The kind with random usernames like Family4Eva123 or Justice4Daniela. All of them had the same message. You embarrassed your family. You'll regret this. Fix it before it's too late. I forwarded them to my boss, just to keep him in the loop. His response? Want me to call legal? We can hit them with a restraining order. It was tempting, but I wasn't ready to go nuclear yet. Instead, I reached out to an old friend of mine who worked in IT security. He helped me lock down all my online accounts. We even set up alerts in case anyone tried to use my personal info for anything shady. And just like that, I disappeared. No calls. No texts. No posts. Nothing. For the first time in my life, I felt free. Weeks passed. I went back to work. The scholarship committee flew me out for orientation. Life started moving again. But then something happened that made my stomach drop. I came home one night to find a letter taped to my apartment door. No stamp. No envelope. Just a piece of printer paper with one sentence written in Daniela's handwriting. You can't ignore us forever. I stood there for what felt like hours. My hands were shaking. I knew they had no way of knowing where I lived, unless someone followed me. I checked the building's security footage with the help of my landlord. And there she was, Daniela, standing in the hallway at 2:43 a.m., taping the letter to my door. I had to sit down. This wasn't just spite anymore. This was obsession. I took a picture of the footage, printed it, and the next morning, I walked straight into the police station. I'd like to file for a restraining order. And that, my friend, was the beginning of the end for my sister. Filing for the restraining order felt both satisfying and terrifying. Satisfying because I was finally drawing the line. Terrifying because I knew this would blow up everything. The officer took my statement, reviewed the footage, and nodded as if this wasn't the first time he'd seen something like this. You've got enough to file. If she comes back, don't wait. Call us immediately. I left the station with a court date set for the following week. In the meantime, I doubled down on security. changed apartments, told nobody where I moved, not even my closest friends. When the day of the hearing arrived, I almost didn't recognize her. Daniela looked small, nervous. But the second she spotted me across the courtroom, she shot me the ugliest glare I've ever seen. She represented herself, of course. She didn't have a lawyer. Probably didn't think she needed one. She stood there rambling about family misunderstandings and how I was blowing this out of proportion. The judge wasn't buying any of it. "Miss, you drove across town in the middle of the night and left a threatening note. You're lucky all he's asking for is distance." The restraining order was granted. 6 months. No contact. No approach. No harassment. When the gavel hit the desk, Daniela finally cracked. "You're not better than me," she screamed across the courtroom. "You'll always be nothing." She had to be escorted out by 2 officers. It was over. Or so I thought. 2 weeks later, I got an email. An anonymous tip from someone claiming to work at my parents' lawyer's office. The message was simple. "Your parents are planning to contest the ownership of your scholarship award money. You might want a lawyer up." I laughed at first. Surely this was a joke, right? They had no legal claim to anything. But deep down, I knew better. They weren't done trying to leech off my success. And if they wanted a legal war, I'd give them one. I wasn't sure if the anonymous tip was legit or just more scare tactics. Until I got a letter hand-delivered to my work the following Monday. It was real. Inside was a formal notice from a law office representing my parents. Apparently, they were planning to challenge my scholarship contract, claiming that I had received it under false pretenses and that family contributions gave them partial entitlement to the funds. I nearly laughed myself breathless. First of all, the scholarship wasn't cash. It covered tuition, housing, and academic travel. There was nothing for them to claim. I showed the letter to my boss. His jaw clenched when he read it. "They're trying to bankrupt you with legal fees. It's harassment, nothing more." He gave me the number of the company's corporate lawyer, who agreed to take on my case at no cost to me. Apparently, this kind of malicious family litigation happens more often than you'd think. We drafted a response within 24 hours. Denying all claims. Threatening counter-litigation for harassment and defamation if they continued. Including copies of the restraining order. The lawyer sent it certified mail, so there'd be no way they could deny receiving it. Days passed with no response. I almost started to believe they'd given up. Until I got a voicemail from my aunt, one of the few family members I hadn't blocked yet. Her voice shook as she whispered, "Marco, your parents just mortgaged the house to pay for this lawsuit. Daniela's been telling everyone you're trying to bankrupt the family. She's not well. None of them are." I didn't reply. I couldn't. The guilt hit me like a freight train. I didn't ask for this war. I didn't ask for any of it. But I knew if I backed down now, I'd lose more than just money. I'd lose my freedom. So I gave my lawyer the green light. Go all in. I'm done playing defense. And just like that, I was officially suing my own family. The court date was scheduled 4 months out. For long, silent months where I heard nothing. No calls. No emails. Not even from my aunt. I kept my head down. Focused on work. On my future. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't check the news or social media every night, half expecting another smear campaign. Then, 2 weeks before the hearing, I finally heard from my lawyer. "They've backed off the scholarship claim," he said. "But now they're claiming emotional distress, saying you damaged their family's reputation." Of course they were. If they couldn't take what I earned, they'd try to flip the narrative and make me look like the villain again. The best part? They filed Daniela as a co-claimant. My own sister, the one with an active restraining order against her, was claiming I had caused her long-term psychological harm. It would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. But my lawyer was ready. We built a full defense, backed by the very evidence they forced me to collect. The audio recordings. The emails. The footage of her stalking my apartment. The court order she already violated. And thanks to the journalist who'd broken my story months ago. Public sympathy was on my side. When the hearing finally arrived, they didn't even look me in the eye. Daniela sat there in a loose cardigan, pretending to be fragile and heartbroken. My parents sat stiff and cold like they were attending a funeral. Their lawyer tried to paint me as a disrespectful son who had publicly humiliated them. But my lawyer, he tore them apart. "Your Honor, this is nothing more than a retaliatory stunt by a family who attempted to sabotage my client's academic career, harassed him at his workplace, and violated court order boundaries." He laid out every piece of evidence like a masterclass in destruction. The courtroom was dead silent by the end of it. The judge didn't even take it under advisement. He ruled on the spot. "All claims are dismissed with prejudice. This is harassment, Plain and simple. You're lucky I'm not sanctioning you for wasting this court's time. My mother burst into tears. Daniela slammed her fist on the table so hard the bailiff stepped in. My dad didn't move. He just stared at me with something I hadn't seen in years. Defeat. But the real blow? The judge added a 2-year extension to Daniela's restraining order and warned my parents they'd be next if they so much as sent another letter. I stood there, breathing for what felt like the first time in months. It was finally, truly, over. Or so I thought. Because as I was leaving the courthouse, Daniela was waiting in the parking lot. I nearly turned around and walked back inside. But something in me snapped. I wasn't afraid of her anymore. She stood by the curb alone, arms crossed, shaking with rage. The moment our eyes met, she stormed toward me. "You think this is over?" she spat. "You've turned everyone against us. You've ruined us." I stood my ground. "No, Daniela. You ruined yourself." She let out this bitter, humorless laugh. "Go ahead, play the hero. But you'll never be more than a selfish little mistake who got lucky. You don't deserve any of this." I smiled, not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic. Her last move was words. "I earned everything while you wasted your life trying to tear me down. I don't owe you, or them, or anyone a damn thing. I'm done. You don't exist to me anymore." And with that, I walked past her, not looking back once. I heard her sobbing behind me. But for the first time in my life, I felt nothing. No guilt. No fear. No weight on my shoulders. Nothing but freedom. I changed my number again that night. Deleted every trace of them from my life. Locked down my accounts. Cut ties with anyone who tried to mediate. Over the next few months, the noise finally died. Daniela stopped posting online. My parents didn't dare try to contact me again. It was peaceful. Unfamiliar, but peaceful. Until one day, I got a letter. Not from them, but from the Eden Fellowship Board. They wanted me to come back to Geneva. This time, not as a student, but as a featured speaker. My heart stopped. I hadn't just survived. I had won. I never expected to return to Geneva so soon, let alone as a featured speaker. The invitation felt surreal. I read it at least 10 times, half expecting it to disappear. They wanted me to talk about perseverance, about beating the odds, about what it takes to stand when the world expects you to fall. And damn if I wasn't ready to tell them. The flight back felt different this time. Lighter. No fear. No lies hanging over me. Just me and my future. I stood on that stage. The same one I'd stood on months earlier, shaking with anxiety. But this time, I was calm. Ready. I told them my story. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. I spoke about what it means to rise from being the failure in your own family. What it costs to cut ties even when it hurts. And how no one, not even blood, has the right to define your worth. When I finished, the room erupted in applause. But the biggest moment came after the speech. One of the board members pulled me aside. "Marco, we'd like to offer you a position as a resident advisor for next year's cohort. Paid travel. Full salary. A chance to help students just like you." I couldn't believe it. I thought I'd left my mark. But this was a new beginning. I accepted on the spot. And as I boarded the flight back home, I realized I didn't hate my family anymore. I just felt done with them. Like they were a closed book. A story that no longer had the power to hurt me. I never heard from them again. Not a letter. Not a message. Nothing. And that's exactly how I wanted it. Because the truth is, sometimes walking away is the loudest victory of all. And me? I walked away a winner.